What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy Storyteller Jet with another episode of the That's So Fire talk show. And today we have a bunch of very special episodes because this week I had the amazing opportunity to hang out at the Family Mastermind. So we just wrapped up the event, which was incredible. Shout out to Matt and Sarah for hosting such a great event. But I'm going to have a few of my friends here on the show to chop it up on the That's So Fire talk show. And the very first one that we have is from my great friend Anthony Simone, and we're going to be talking about all things LinkedIn and how to utilize it to generate revenue and to increase credibility. So if you ever wanted to learn LinkedIn and how you can use it as a really great tool to grow your business, this talk show is for you. Anthony, such a pleasure having you on the show, man.
I think it's good to be here.
Yeah, man. We've talked about you being on for, I don't know, like 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
Was it at Coaching Inc?
I
Coaching
think so.
Inc, that was the very first time, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. Shout out to Coaching Inc. also. Super pumped to having you here, and I'm glad that we're able to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we are going to do a quick introduction of who Anthony is, and then we'll delve into the conversation. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. So quick introduction. Who is Anthony? And give me a high level of what you do with your business.
Yeah. So live in Austin, Texas, married and have 2 children, and we keep pretty busy. Lots of kids activities, and then running a business and running a household, which is like running a business, right?
Absolutely.
So we really busy with that. As far as what we do, we specialize on the business side. We specialize in helping people increase their credibility and also generate leads and drive more business from LinkedIn. And we've got a couple other things that we do, but LinkedIn is a key pillar in our business. And the reason why is because it's one of those it's kind of still misunderstood and underutilized by so many people. And the biggest thing is it's a relationship platform. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we're in a time in history where relationships have never been more important, especially with the advent of AI and like technology just changing so much so fast. People are starting to crave more of that relationship, and I think it's just going to be the thing that sets us apart.
100%. Yeah, LinkedIn is extremely important and definitely underutilized for sure. So one of my favorite part of the show is, as part of the beginning of it, to talk a little bit about the origin story. What is the come up story? What are some of the biggest challenges that you face over your career that has shaped your journey and where you are at today? What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned from that? So I would like to delve into that before we dive into your expertise with LinkedIn.
Okay.
So what is your origin story? How did you get started to kind of become where you are at today?
Wow. Yeah. How much time do we have again?
We have 5 hours. No.
We might need it. No.
Yeah.
It's, I kind of chuckle when I think about this whole concept of LinkedIn because if somebody would told me, hey, you're going to be on this show talking about LinkedIn to this guy named Jet and, all this crazy stuff about LinkedIn, helping people grow their businesses, I would have just laughed because I thought LinkedIn was a place to go find a job or post a resume, like most people still do. What happened was I sort of ended up here by accident.
Really?
And what I mean by that is I had a thriving business. My first business outside of the corporate world was a business where we were cleaning out foreclosed properties. And so that was a booming business back in 2008 era. And we did really well. We started in Missouri, expanded over to California, and then we expanded into Phoenix as well. So it's funny because one day that was going really well. And one day a buddy of mine came to me and said, hey, I want to take you to this marketing event. And it was a Dan Kennedy event. So some of the people out there.
Dan Kennedy, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's like the OG of direct response. And so I go to this event and I'm listening to all these people talk about how they're just teaching people about their business and helping them get started in that kind of a business. And they're just killing it. And I thought, man, I could do that. And at the time, a lot of people were losing their jobs and their businesses. So I thought, man, what a great opportunity to be able to serve and give back to a lot of people. And so the buddy that took me there So, hey, I got an idea. Why don't we teach people how to do this, right? And so he kind of was like, hey, I'm coming up with the idea, even though I was already thinking about it, and developed this partnership. And he was majority shareholder. So we took this business and launched it, and we did really, really well. I think in the first year, we surpassed $1 million in sales, and we had just tons of people coming in from all walks of life. And we took this business, right? This business coaching program, we just scaled it up. It was going really, really well. In fact, I thought I was going to just ride that off into the retirement.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of fun. You know, I had a lot of affinity to it. And, you know, I'd figured out how to actually grow a business. It wasn't just like, hey, we got lucky and we're just making all this money. It was like, in that service business that I had been in, I figured out ways to build relationships, to make it more profitable. And that's ultimately why he wanted me to be the face of the business. And so I learned everything, though, about marketing just by sheer trial and error and being around good people. So I was lucky enough to cross paths with some really good, marketers, and learned a lot of stuff. But what ultimately ended up happening, and this is like the come up, right? Like, yes, like what happened? What are some of the challenges? My son had a near-death experience.
Wow.
One day when he was just a baby. I think he was about 10 months old at the time. And I was in my office and heard my wife screaming, and ran out there and saw her holding him, and he was turning blue. He was choking, having a seizure. And I just out of instinct grabbed him and started doing CPR on him, and did that for what seemed like forever. And he just wasn't breathing. And it was the weirdest thing. You know, my wife's screaming, crying. She's on the phone with EMS, and I'm just, I don't even know how I was keeping calm, but I was just like on it, right? Just instinctively. And at one point I was like, I thought we lost him, because there was just nothing happening. And so I heard this voice, and I don't know what people believe out there, but for me, I believe in God. I'm a man of faith. And I just heard this voice that say, Anthony, turn him on his side one more time. And I turned Miles on his side one more time, and he took a breath. So I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to be okay. And right then EMS came in, put him on the stretcher, hooked him up to IVs and all this other stuff, and took him to hospital. So we were in a hospital for a few days, and ultimately what happened was my partner at the time drew up an amendment to our partnership and said that we were being told to do it by the Secretary of State. Trusted him, signed it, and effectively what it did is it gave away half of the business.
That is crazy.
So at that time, I mean, I learned some lessons, right? Like read through everything, right? Don't skip. But I wasn't really worried about that at the time. It was just, just worried about making sure my son was okay. So that was a really hard time. That was like an enormous challenge for me. And, I was depressed for quite a while after that. But then one day I was laying there and I heard another voice, and it said, Anthony, get up. Your family needs you. And I thought about it. I'm like, I learned all these skills. Like, I can do this again. And so I was part of a high-level mastermind back then called the Digital Marketer War Room. And it's no longer around, but it was like the place to be. Lots of great people.
We were just thinking about that last night with, Bob Diamond and all the other fun stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah. Bob and Ed, I would consider them some of the most, world-renowned marketers and business people and just human beings on the planet. They're just really great people, very smart. But I learned a lot from people like that, and so I had contacts like that in that.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to Bob too. He did a fantastic presentation just like an hour ago when we were at the Family Mastermind, maybe a couple hours. And it was really cool to kind of hear him give so much to the room as well. So shout out to Bob.
Absolutely. Lots of value there and people like that. And so there was another guy that was in there, and he came to me and he heard what happened. He's like, hey, I'm doing some really cool stuff with LinkedIn. And at first I was like, he's trying to help me get a job. And I was like, I'm not quite ready for that yet. I want to kind of get into another business of some sort. So decided to give in, started playing around on the platform, and I came up with a brand new offer. Nobody knew me in this niche, and all I did was use LinkedIn, a really great offer, some messaging, some really tight messaging, and the phone. And within 30 days, I'd collected $60,000 with $60,000 set to come in on recurring on the back end.
Wow.
So yeah, so then I was like super excited. I was like, oh my gosh, you know? And then part of me was like, okay, Anthony, wait a minute. Sometimes you can get lucky with marketing. And I went out the next 30 days and I followed the same sort of process, and I got almost exactly the same results to the dollar.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay,
Something is there.
I'm
Some's
on
there.
to something here, and things are really going to be all right. In fact, I remember going into the bathroom and hugging my wife and just like crying because I was like, you know, we're going to be okay. And still today I get choked up about it because it's like such a hard time in our lives. But the thing about it is that I saw there was a silver lining, right? And so once I figured out I had something, you know, I was connected. So people were asking me what I was doing. Everybody's looking for another way to bolt on some additional revenue, right?
Yeah.
So I started working with folks, and ultimately that's led to what we do today. And we've been doing that for quite some time now. And it's just been a lot of fun, just kind of, you know, rediscovering and kind of seeing what's changing and adapting with the changes. And there's a lot changing today. So, you know, that's why I said earlier, having relationships is like, that's the most important thing that you could focus on. And I think we get really distracted in this day and age when a new tool comes out, a new shiny object, and it's easy to do that, you know, because there are some really cool things happening. But what happens, in my opinion, and in my experience, is people get so distracted that they start going so wide, they don't focus on the most important thing, which is building those relationships with.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would love to dive into that topic with you in just a minute too, because I think this is definitely key to a lot of, you know, to success. But I wanted to take a couple step back for a couple of things that you shared. The first thing, what was the biggest lesson that you learned about forging partnership or having the right partnership when you were going through that, I guess, business divorce? What was the biggest lesson that you can impart on anybody watching this right now?
You know, I would say for me, I feel like I knew this person wasn't a person of faith. To me, you know, everybody's different, but to me, I think that's important because for me, I'm the same person now as I am when all the money's coming in. That doesn't change me. And maybe I should feel fortunate for that, but I think I just, I associate that with me just being a believer and having a lot of faith. And, you know, money's not the end goal for me. Like, it's a byproduct of just serving people well. So I think having that synergy with somebody and making sure that you are on the same page is very, very important. And I think that for me, because people ask me like, well, would you ever go back and change that if you could? And I wouldn't, because what happened from that point on, as I look back, I could connect the dots. It was supposed to happen that way. And I was supposed to learn that lesson. For whatever reason, God showed up and said, hey, this is a lesson that you've got to learn. And I'm really glad that he did, because I think I'm a better father because of it, a better husband, a better business partner, a better friend, you know, a better mentor. Those are things that I just feel like they're important as you start looking, you know, because when you're going through it, you're like,
Yeah.
why? Why? I mean, I've learned my lesson. Okay, please just, you know, take the pain away. But those hard lessons are what shape us into who we are.
Yeah. A follow-up to that question, which is one I wanted to actually ask you about, is a lot of entrepreneurs might be going through the thick of it right now. They may have lost everything, or they may be, you know, going through that entrepreneur roller coaster. You've experienced some of that.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to anybody that may be experiencing something similar right now?
Well, I think the roller coaster never ends, right? It doesn't matter. Like when you're an entrepreneur, there's always going to be challenge. That's the only guarantee in business, is that there's going to be challenges, right? So it's going to be up to you to establish the fortitude and the guts to stick it out, because things change, and you know the market doesn't care. It's just the market is the market. So you've got to look at it like not taking it personally, right? So there's this book that I read, and it's a little bit on the woo-woo side, but it's called the 4 Agreements. And one of those agreements is not to take anything personally and always do your best. So when you're going through that stuff, don't take it personally. Just look at it like, this obstacle's in my way. What is it trying to teach me? How do I maneuver around it? And there's also another book that I'd recommend people pick up. It's one of my favorite. Listen to it multiple times per year because I always get something new out of it. is The Obstacle is a Way by Ryan Holiday. And it's a phenomenal book, but it kind of breaks down how to change your perspective on those challenges that you go through. And you can use them actually to help you move forward even better in your life, in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love to have people of faith into the talk show because I'm also a man of faith, and I truly believe that all of these things that we see over here has been entrusted to me by God. So if I can kind of share a little bit of that too, it's always like my favorite. So what role has faith played in your entrepreneurial journey?
It's been everything. It's like there are days, no matter what, that you just like, man, why is everything going wrong? And you can listen to somebody else's advice. You can turn up your social media accounts and listen to all the gurus, or you can go to what I feel is the best source, and that is the good book.
Yeah.
Right? There's an answer in that book for every single problem, every single challenge, every situation. You just got to be willing to open up and look at it and be open-minded enough to take it in. And I think that it's given me hope because I think, if I could quote one of my favorite movies of all time, which is The Shawshank Redemption, where he's like, he said, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and a truly good thing never dies. And hope is everything, in my opinion, because if you have hope, there's always a chance, right? It doesn't matter what you're going through. And if you look at there's always somebody who's got it worse, right? So you look at some of the examples of people out there that are going through way worse, and they've got that hope, and they're still persevering and moving forward. I think that's the thing that faith has given me, is just a foundation to be able to have that help when I need it.
Yeah. Very well said. I love it. And I love the quote too. I have not seen Shawshank Redemption yet. I think I need to watch it. Maybe I've seen some clips of it. But all the time, when I tell people about like a couple of trips that I've had into Zihuatanejo, they always kind of, is that what's happened at the end of the show? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So now let's transition a little bit about your expertise and the things that you are doing to helping people. And I feel like a lot of people would get a massive, they will get massive value with what we are going to share about LinkedIn and how you're utilizing it to do all of that. One of my favorite presentations that I have seen you've done was at Coaching Inc. a year ago in Orlando. And it was like literally after your presentation, I came home and changed everything on my LinkedIn. That's how impactful that presentation. And I think I messaged you about that too on Facebook or something. So let's talk about that for a minute. What are some of the key things, like 0 to 1, what are some of the things that people can do right now to ensure that they improve their LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I was saying this earlier, but like I think there's never been a more important time in history to focus on relationships, but also with relationships, you need credibility. And right now with AI, which I think AI is great, right? Use it where it makes sense. Keep it out of the places where it doesn't make sense, right? Which is the human-to-human interaction, which builds the strong bond and relationship. But at the end of the day, people, the consumers, even business people, we're getting tired of hearing about bots and avatars and all that stuff. So what that means is you need to be able to stand out and increase your credibility. And to increase your credibility, there's a lot of different things you could do, but one of the reasons why LinkedIn is a great place for that is because people trust that platform. Mm-hmm. It's a business platform. It's actually not really a social media platform. It's a relationships platform. And the reason why people aren't doing well on it is because they're approaching it like it's a social media platform. And they're trying to do the same things they do on Facebook, Instagram, on LinkedIn, and it just doesn't work that way. It's a relationships platform. So one of the first things you can do is dial in your profile and make sure it's optimized. And there's a lot you can do there, and we probably don't have time to go into that, but everything from your cover image to your profile photo to a headline that's under your photo to your about section, that needs to speak to your ideal target audience. And you need to look reputable. So how should you do that? Make sure that you're speaking in a language that they understand. Talk about why people trust you. Talk about the problems that you solve. Don't talk about how great you are, because that's what a lot of people do. Or they'll have it in third person. Like they'll say, Jet likes this, or Jet really enjoys this. That's not what you want to be. You want to be in first person, right? It's got to be more personalized. And so because of that, LinkedIn is again, it's one of those things people are sleeping on, but it's something very simple that you can do that will allow you to stand out from your competitors. And again, people love that platform. They trust it. And if you have a profile, by the way, and people search you, which they will, they're never going to give you money before they first look you up online. Mm-hmm. So when they look you up online, guess what's going to pop up on page one and almost always in the first position? It's going to be your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to spend some time there and dial it in and show that you have the lights on in your business.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say probably the most important part of LinkedIn, obviously this is the very first thing that people would see is their profile. So what are some of the trick and tips that you would give for somebody to improve their profile? I think that was kind of part of your presentation as well.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that people can do to ensure that they have the right profile picture on LinkedIn?
Well, it needs to look like you, the way you look, right? Like if you were at the grocery store, would you have 55 filters on your face? No. Something so small, and this is where it sounds so elementary, but something as simple as looking like you actually look in real life in your pictures is a huge, what one of my mentors used to call a small hinge that swings a big door. Because if you think about, like, if I approached you on LinkedIn and we're like, hey, let's go grab some coffee, and we meet at the coffee shop and you show up and my picture it was an avatar or whatever, you may not even recognize me. And then you send me a message like, where were you at? Why didn't you show up? Those harm a reputation and your relationship. So you want to start off being authentic and being who you really are, because that's really your only competitive advantage when it comes down to it. You could take, if you did the same thing I did, exactly, you still can never be me. I can never be you.
Yeah.
That's something you can't take away. So it's a superpower if you could step into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also I would say to add to that, like, make sure that your pictures are well lit, that you're not like, in the darkness and people can even see your face.
See your face, right?
Yeah. Or, even just kind of, at least make sure that your the picture is professional, not like, hey, somewhat professional, not like, okay, like it's so far away and like not even showcasing your face. You kind of like maybe doing something else and
riding a motorcycle or something,
Yeah. Those things probably would make a, big difference for.
Well, smiling too. I've had a number of people that they'll come to me and they'll ask me for advice and say, make sure you're smiling in your picture. And they're like, well, I don't smile. I'm like, smiling is the most simple way to get somebody to smile back at you, right?
Yeah.
To help that kind of show who you are, show some personality. Also, being able to see your eyeballs, right?
Yeah.
Don't be squinting or, looking somewhere else. Like, let people see your eyeballs. So little things that help to build that bond. And I would argue till I'm blue in the face that those little things, we need to pay way more attention to them now than ever before, because it's those little things are going to, like the small hinges that swing big doors, because they compound over time and they all work together to do what you're trying to do, which is build those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the most important part of LinkedIn or optimizing your LinkedIn is the bio section. And a lot of people, they just kind of post like random stuff in there and not really utilizing that as a way for them to connect with the people they actually want to build that relationship with. Do you have, I know you do, but I don't know how you're going to explain that, but do you have any formula of like ways that people can set up that bio to, help them build a relationship with other people?
Yeah, that's the most, it's not it's a very important part, but it's like, I would argue like the headline is the most important part, your picture, your cover image, because that's what people see first, right? And those need to be dialed in. Why? When we talk about your cover image for a minute, I'll get back to the about section. Imagery is important because we remember about 20% of what we read, but 80% of what we see. So your imagery is important, not only on your LinkedIn profile, but on your website, on your other social media profiles as well. And on LinkedIn, I'm a big fan of making sure that it can convey to the person that lands on your page exactly what you do, what you believe in a very short period of time. So for me, if you look at my profile, you can learn a lot from it. because I very carefully created it with a lot of intention. You'll see quotes overlay. Those quotes are important because I know people have a hard time not reading quotes. So our eyes are drawn to that. So when they read my quote, they see that people and results are the two things that matter most. And that's how I roll. That's what I believe in, my philosophy, but I also know that's important to them.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all done with that careful intention so that I can start the relationship. And also I can kind of push people away. Like, let me give you an example. I also have my family on my cover image. There's some people that don't want to hear about that.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But if we're going to work together, we're going to get to know each other really well. And if you don't like me talking about my kids or my wife, it's probably not going to last very long.
And that's something that is extremely important to you as well. So you need to attract the people that have similar values than what you have as well.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, again, I learned this early on in my career, and that is that good marketing will push people away that are probably not likely a fit and pull people towards you that are more likely a fit for you. So how do you do that? You got to be authentic. Again, it's your superpower. You heard a lot about this in the Family Mastermind over the last few days, was like, don't try to be somebody that you're not. That takes a lot of energy, and you're going to attract the wrong people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's go back to the bio section.
Yeah, the about section.
Yeah, I think that's important because like as soon as I heard your presentation, I went and copied kind of what you have and tried to replicate that for myself as well, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
As well, the way that you had that it kind of felt like a VSL in some shape or form that you kind of
100%. Yeah.
So
yeah,
let's talk about that. How do you optimize your bio on LinkedIn?
So it should be written like a sales letter, but not a sales letter that is like pitchy or really braggadocious, if that makes sense. It needs to talk about, here's who I am. Three things that you want to hit. Here's who I am. Here's what I've got for you. Here's what I want you to do next. Right. So if I could wrap it up in a very simple formula, it's that. It's like, here's what I've got. Here's what it'll do for you. Here's what I want you to do next. So looking at my profile, obviously we don't have time to go deep into this, but you want to talk about what you do and how it solves a problem, the problem that you solve, why people trust you to solve that problem. And then at the end of that, you want to make sure that you give them a call to action, which is, if they landed on your profile, remember, these people are busy. So if they made it all the way to the bottom of your about section, the last thing you want them to do is say to themselves, you know what, Jet sounds really interesting. I probably want to talk to him sometime, but I'll come back and hit the connection button or send him a message. Because you know what that means? I'll do it later means?
Never,
right?
Yeah.
So you want to remind them, hey, if any of this resonated with you, and this is just a rough example, but at the end of your profile, you should say, if any of this resonated with you and you're a person of integrity, hit the connect button or reach out, send me a message right now, and let's set up a time to chat. You can send them wherever you want. You can send, just a call to action that makes sense based on what your about section is about. So that, and I mean, I could tell you so many things. I think the easiest way is have people just look me up and see my structure and sort of adapt it for them. But it's got all the copywriting best practices, like short, punchy sentences, easy to read, spaced out, so there's a lot of white space, so it's easy on the eyes. Because if you write something good and it makes sense, you want it to be read.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't, maybe don't do the the space and the short, punchy sentences. Like if you've got it in third person, you don't want to have great copywriting principles as far as spacing and everything and have bad copy.
Yeah. Talking about copywriting, and you mentioned earlier that you went and learned from Dan Kennedy, and he's probably one of the most well-known people around copy. What was the biggest lesson that you've learned from Dan Kennedy I know that may have been a long time ago, but you may have used some of those techniques that you've learned in the copy for the LinkedIn page. But
Yeah.
what is the biggest advice or lessons that you've learned from Dan Kennedy around copywriting?
I would say that, and it's where still a lot of people get it wrong, and I have to pay attention to it too, because sometimes I fall into that same bucket of, don't do this. It's focusing on what's important to the person reading it. Because at the end of the day, he used to say this a lot. He's like, they don't care about you yet, right? They just want to know, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
So if you can ask yourself that question, step into their shoes, and see it from their perspective, that's where a lot of magic could happen.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna start. It's a two-pronged question. The very first one, what is the biggest misconception that a lot of people have around LinkedIn?
They think it's a place to go post a resume or a CV or a bio or to look for a job. Still, when I speak on stage, people say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize you can do that stuff. Like, we use it to drive business all day long for our clients. I mean, it's a gold mine. If you know what you're doing and you could behave correctly on the platform, there's a lot over there. And then when you combine that with some of the other things that we do, it just takes it to a whole nother level. And some of those other things is like email, effective email. Because at the end of the day, I will say this, you don't want to leave your connections and your prospects and leads on LinkedIn. You want them in your database.
100%. And that is true for every other platform out there as
Amen.
well. Yeah. I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people do. Even for me right now, like, this is so cool. This is so awesome that we're doing this. But one of my goals is to see how we can move people to, like, maybe sign up for like an email where whenever we go live, we can kind of say, hey, we're live, go check it out, and kind of bring that back up as well. You mentioned something over here just 30 seconds ago that I would like to dive a little bit deeper on. What are some of the biggest things that people may not be aware about LinkedIn that could be game changing for them?
Well, I'll tell you this much. A lot of people are blown away by this one stat, and that is they did this survey. And out of this survey, they found that 73% of buyers said that if the salesperson would reach out over LinkedIn, they would more heavily consider the brand. And why that's important is because, remember, what do people have to have before they pay you money? Starts with T.
Trust. Yeah.
Trust,
Yeah.
right?
My three favorite words are know, like, and trust. Like, as it relates to marketing, when you started posting, doing all the other stuff. But yeah, trust is the
But
key
they can
thing.
know and like you and
They
still
don't
not
trust
trust
you.
you, and they're not gonna give you
Exactly.
any money. They're
Yeah.
not gonna go that far with you in that relationship. So that's really, really important. And when you think about that, when you can go onto a platform, and as long as you can be relational, conversational, value driven, and that platform already has a certain amount of trust, all you're doing, like what we do with our client, we're borrowing that trust and bringing it onto our side of the table, right? And there's really no shortcut in business, but that's pretty close to a shortcut.
Yeah.
When you've got a platform that people already trust, and as long as you behave properly, you're there to serve, and you can, approach them the right way,
Yeah.
you're going to get business.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest secret around LinkedIn that people might not be aware of to, like, really grow relationship on there?
Well, I think that, there's lots of, I don't know if I call them secrets, but it's like, if you think about what goes into a good relationship, it's like, I don't just reach out to you and say, hey, I'm really good at this, and this. Do you think you want to give me some money? Right? I am reaching out and saying, hey, I've got this thing of value. You might be interested in it. Would you like to take a peek? Or, it's value up front. So value in advance. And this is something I learned from a mentor a long time ago too. And that is value in advance. You want to think about what you can do for them. Again, that's all they're interested in. And you look a lot different too. So I'd say if I would wrap a secret up, it's like, do this everywhere in your marketing and your business. What can you provide of value up front without asking for anything in return?
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, I've done this, like, sometimes on my webinar, I'll give away a guide for LinkedIn. And I've had people email me and say, I've got screenshots of this stuff, right? It's like, Anthony, I implemented your headline formula and it attracted my largest paying client to date. Thank you so much. And they don't become a client.
Wow.
And you know what? I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. Why?
Yep.
Guess what? That person sends me referrals.
100%.
So it's like serving. It's like it's hard for a lot of people to wrap their minds around that, because we're taught about selling, and you see it done everywhere online. It's just people are pitching. And it's a cash grab. But if you could step back from that and sort of just think about it from a different perspective, like how can I serve this person first? You stand out so far from the competition that you do what Chet Holmes, the great late Chet Holmes, called resetting the buying criteria, where now they're used to how you treat them and they go somewhere else that might do something similar. And they're like, wait a minute, they're not doing this, this, and this. And Anthony told me to look for this, and they come back.
Yeah.
Right. So, and we would be, it'd be pretty egotistical to think that somebody's just going to look at your thing only, right?
Yeah.
They're going to look.
Yeah,
around.
100%.
So
yeah.
the better you can behave in that manner and the more strategic you can be intentionally about that, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, 100%. What do you think about those people that like they just sent you a friend request on LinkedIn and like literally 30 seconds later, they're already pitching you and sending you messaging, hey, do you want to buy this? Do you want to do this? What do you think about those types of people, and why is that the wrong way to approach business on LinkedIn?
I don't think about them too much. And that's a problem, right? For them. Now, what I mean by that is they just get deleted. They're just passing in the night and gone. So I see it all the time. I get those messages all the time. And again, it's like if I met you at the grocery store and I'm like, hey, I'm really great at LinkedIn. I could like do this, 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 and this. Think you want to hire me? How good would that go? Not very good, right?
Yeah.
But if I was like, hey, you know what? Nice to meet you. You know, what do you do? And you're like telling me about your studio. I'm like, oh man, that's amazing. And I get to know you, ask you some follow-up questions. I'm not talking about me at all.
Yeah.
And then I'll think about something based on what you said that I can provide to you that has nothing to do with my business.
Provide value first, baby. Yes.
And then that's how you start the relationship. In fact, that's how our relationship started. That's why I'm here right now on this amazing set that you've created, which if you're watching this and haven't seen this place, like if you think it looks good here on camera, you should see this place in person. It's incredible.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Appreciate you, bro.
Absolutely.
So talking about that specifically, like, share with me what's that process look like? Like how many time, like how quickly before you start like, building those relationships, like how many messages and how, like, I know it's probably a hard question to ask, but like, what does that sequence look like when you're forming a relationship with somebody?
So here's the thing that people don't understand, or don't realize, I should say. The reason why we start with the profile as the foundation is because that thing is going to do a lot of heavy lifting, and it should do a lot of heavy lifting for you. Because the first thing people are going to do is go to it. Before they give you any time, they're going to check you out. Before they give you any money, they're going to check you out. And if they encountered you on LinkedIn, they're going to check your LinkedIn profile out. If they met you at a conference like this one here, they're going to look you up. What's going to happen? If you got a LinkedIn profile, it's going to pop up on the top of the search. So when you build your profile and optimize it the right way, people are going to land there. It's going to do a lot of heavy lifting for you. So when you have that right, it shortens the time needed to have a lot of conversation. But I'll tell you that we've got lots of situations where somebody just gets a connection request and they want to book a call because the profile did all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And then other people, it just takes a little bit. It's hard to put a specific, this works this way all the time, because that's not how relationships work. But if you put the best process forward and give yourself the best chance of shortening that time, compress it as much as possible to build that trust where that person feels like they're ready to take whatever that next step is, that's what you want to do. And again, it's hard for people to wrap their minds around that because it's relationships. And if we're honest, most people don't think about the relationship first.
Yeah.
They think about the money.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that question later, but since we're talking about relationship, and obviously we are part of multiple groups together, Family Mastermind, Coaching Inc., and shout out to my boys at Family Mastermind and Coaching Inc. as well. Why is it important to be in organizations like Family Mastermind and building relationship with other people?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, it's going to sound like I'm kicking a dead dog here, right? But it's the relationships. And you know what's great about being in a group like that? When you're in groups like the family, or you're in groups like Coaching Inc., these people are vetted. The people that are in these, like for family, for example, you can't even get in unless somebody recommends you.
Yeah.
Right? An existing member recommends you. That allows people to put all the dancing aside, right? Now we can have a conversation. We could jump to a more meaningful conversation because it's like LinkedIn. It's like there's a certain amount of trust already built up just within in the group itself.
Yeah.
So now you can get to business a lot more quickly. That's why LinkedIn is that way too. So 100%. Masterminds, the right mastermind, they're not all created equal. That's them. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm not saying every group is going to be like that, but you get in the right groups where high level people, and I don't mean like high level from a status. I'm talking about like people that believe in relationships and they're doing really well in their business, serving a lot of people and willing to share and pour back into each other. That's the kind of groups you want to be in, because that's the tide that raises for all ships, right?
Yeah, for sure. If you had to share like some of the results that you've gained from being in a mastermind, like family mastermind, what are some of the results that you've gained from being in the group?
Lots of great new friends, lots of collaborations, business partnerships, JVs, affiliates. It's just, again, a lot of, like, if I dare say the word magic, happens when you're in that kind of an environment with that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. Again, shout out to Family Mastermind and Coaching Inc. and a lot of really other great organizations out there like Collective Genius. So if you're ever looking at a group that can help you grow your business, or even change your mindset. For me, like the connections and the relationship that I've been able to build and those types of organizations have been incredible. So I would highly encourage you to go to Facebook, go to LinkedIn, and find out those groups and message them to learn a little bit more about them. And Family Mastermind and Coaching Inc. are like Collective Genius are some of the best groups out there for you to consider joining. So let's go back to our conversation. As it relates to posting on LinkedIn, what are some of the types of content would you recommend that people post on LinkedIn, and how often?
It's, that's an interesting topic, because it's sort of like the wild, wild west still over on the platform. Like there's only, I think it's still the stats say like less than 2% of users post content regularly. So if you can post good content, insightful content, not just content for the sake of posting content, but what's insightful, like give some of your best stuff away, then you're going to have the opportunity to get a lot more readership, because again, most people are still not posting on the platform. Now it's starting to get a lot more notoriety because you got people like Gary Vee that's calling it out, right? And he's shouting right now. Like I just saw another email this morning from him. He's just like, you are missing the boat if you're not on LinkedIn, if you're B2B, if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to do any of this stuff. He's like, you need to be posting content. Now, Gary Vee is all like, you need to post 19 times a day, right? And you don't need to post that much to get some really great results, because again, most people they're not posting. So you're just going to stand out a lot more. But I would say things like they're putting a lot of emphasis on videos now. So videos are going to be something that's going to continue, because they see the engagement with Reels, right? And so now they're not dumb. It's Microsoft, right? So they're like, we're going to put more emphasis on that. So if you do Reels, you're going to likely even stand out more. You're going to get a lot more viewership because of that. They're going to put more juice towards that particular type of content. Mixture of long form and short form, those are great. I see like checklists work really well, by the way, on LinkedIn. Like busy professionals, if you can give them like very valuable checklists, like here's the 10 things you need to know for XYZ, they eat it up, because it's like they're busy. And oftentimes that's why I tell people to start their about section off with something like, you look at mine, it's like, hey, I know you're busy, but give me 120 seconds, not share what I do and why it might be impactful for you too. Right? And you're kind of acknowledging that. And that's a little, if I share another tip here, is just acknowledging that, because if we don't see each other for a long time, like, hey, Jay, how you been? You'd be like, man, been busy.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just get that out of the way right now. I know you've been busy, but hey, give me can you give me a few minutes? I want to kind of update you on what's going on. That's a different approach, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. I've seen a lot of people post that, like, it's kind of great to know that video is doing very well too, but seeing that long form post, like kind of blog style posts on LinkedIn are performing well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you need to have a mixture because you have people that have just different preferences on how they absorb content. And sometimes that preference changes on different days.
Yeah.
So I think to give yourself the best chance of readership and consumption is you just got to have a mix of it.
Yeah.
And consistency. I don't think, there could be a time where you're going to need to post a lot more, but right now it's just like, it's like Gary Vee said it, even in the email today. He said, that right now, as far as content goes over on LinkedIn, it's like it was with Facebook post circa 2011. So that just gives you an idea.
Yeah. Yeah. One other thing that I know that you do very well is helping people raise money, raise funds. How do you use LinkedIn to raise money?
So LinkedIn, if you think about who's on LinkedIn, right? Business owners, C-level executives, you got lots of salespeople that make a lot of money in commissions, right? There's a lot of different types of people on the platform. The key is that they have the money. And that's where they operate. They got business on the brain too when they're on LinkedIn. So when you're there to present content that relates to opportunities to save on taxes or to protect their capital or to invest their money, right? You've got all these different types of people over there, including people that are already investors. And so it's just a great place to go directly to that particular audience and engage them in a conversation. Again, your profile, if it speaks the right way, if you approach them the right way, you can't help but to have conversations with some of those folks. And if you're a real estate investor, you're looking for funding for your deals, we do it all the time.
Yeah. Awesome. You mentioned earlier that the main goal is for not like necessarily like keep people on LinkedIn, but try to figure out of ways that you can move them toward your email list. What are some of the techniques and ways that you have helped other people do that, like to get their followers that are on LinkedIn to their email list?
Yeah. So you can do it by posting content and making them request whatever you're offering. So it could be a checklist, right? It could be a guide. It could be a video. It could be, maybe it's a podcast episode. We shared some really good stuff and you're like, hey, this might be of interest to you. If they raise their hand and say, yes, I want that, all you got to do is ask them for their email. Like it's an exchange of value. They know that everybody knows their email's worth something these days.
Yeah.
Right. It's like a currency. So you want to trade and mutually exchange value. So you grab the email address and you plug them into your CRM. The other thing that works well is webinars. Webinars are fantastic, right? Because it allows you to have a certain amount of time to talk about who you are, what you're doing, why it's important to them, right? Again, why is it important to them? Because that's what they care about most. And it gives you opportunity to book calls. And again, they book calls, they sign up for a webinar, they should be going to your CRM because the last thing you want to do is leave them on the platform because you don't control it, right? That's kind of like if you use like a real estate sort of analogy, it's like that's you're leasing that platform. You want to get them over to something you own, which is your email list, your database.
Yeah.
And that's the asset, right? It's the people that are the asset. So I had to learn that the hard way back in the day, but I was lucky because I was part of that. I don't know if you remember this, but there was something called the Google Slap.
Google Slap.
Yeah, and there were like tens of thousands of us that got removed off the advertising platform because we used squeeze pages.
Interesting.
We were just trying to collect email addresses, as a nice squeeze page. And I know why they did it now, and I think it was relevant and it was needed. But back then, when you're generating $80K a month off just that one platform, and they go away in one day and they won't tell you why, you're like, okay, well, what do you do? I was already collecting emails. So how did I get through that time where I learned to buy media elsewhere? I had my email list, had my database.
Yeah.
So you don't want to leave it in their control. Get it off of the platform and into your control. And that's where you can do all kinds of great things to increase your revenue.
Yeah.
Build a relationship, nurture.
Yeah. You briefly touched on that. Obviously, we are in a talk show podcast kind of here. How do you utilize your podcast to grow your LinkedIn? Like for me, like I would post like shorts and maybe like some short form content, some 3 to 7 minute video on LinkedIn, or even like the reels on LinkedIn. What are some of the ways that you see people use their podcast to grow their followings on LinkedIn?
Just like that. It's like posting the reels, chopping the content up into little bits and segments and sharing that across the platform. One of the ways that we use it is we might have a specific audience that the topic covered would be important for, or they'd be interested in. So that becomes the kind of quote lead magnet. And if somebody says, yeah, I'd love to take a look at that. Now you've got grab their email. Now you can follow up with them. Hey, what'd you think about that? What are your thoughts? That all leads, again, it's like a journey, right? It's a relationship journey. So using your podcast in that way is really great, because with video, they can hear you, see you, and they learn. And so the more that they can use their senses to kind of consume who you are and what you do, the quicker you build the relationship.
Absolutely. You help people get booked on podcasts. Can you highlight for me, why is it so crucial or important for people to either start a podcast or being featured on other people's podcasts?
So I would say in one word, it's credibility. Because if somebody puts you on their stage, automatically you're credible. If you're on a podcast, automatically you're credible. If you have your own podcast, automatically you're credible. But what's great about all of those things is that you get to be in front of other people's audiences, right? So you as the podcast host, you invite somebody onto your podcast, it's great for them because they can show other people that, hey, I'm on somebody's stage, right? And then for you, you get in front of the audience as well.
Yeah.
So it's like a mutually beneficial thing. And there's a lot of people that are interested, a lot of professionals, a lot of business owners that they're very interested in that kind of awareness that comes from being on a podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then obviously as a host, like the personal conversations that you have, I mean, that builds a strong relationship in a very short period of time.
100%. Somebody, I think my boy Darren Bentley over here shared something on social media, which I wasn't really thinking about at all, is the fact that like when you are on somebody's podcast, this is like the easiest way to, not for me, it's not like that, but the easiest way to build that relationship, but like it's a great sales tool for a lot of people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because everybody's looking for a sales call booking.
Yeah.
But what if you had your ideal client type on your podcast and you get to know them so well in a short period of time, both pre-podcast, post-podcast, and then all the follow-up? I mean, it's like this unique way to build a bond.
Yeah.
And if you are very relational and, again, value-driven, you can have a good conversation. That person can become a client of yours in no time.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? You've taken like what could have been months and months of, relationship building and kind of condensed it down into a matter of, hours or days, right?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, my primary goal for this show, I'm putting it out here, is, to be the next Diary of a CEO. So hopefully I'm doing you good service. Stephen Bartlett over here, learning a ton from him, but pretty cool. So we are at the end of the talk show. I have my boy Jason gonna come in here on the show soon. We're gonna be chatting about some AI stuff and some other really cool things. But there's 5 questions that I always ask people on the talk show at the end of it. I'm probably not gonna ask you all 5, but let's start over there. So the very first one for you is, if you had to share $1 million idea. If you had to share $1 million advice to anybody watching this, again, it doesn't have to be, hey, how to make $1 million, but what is the biggest advice? What is the $1 million advice that you would share with anybody?
Man, I'm going to go back to my boy Zig Ziglar. Help enough other people get what they want, you can have anything you want.
Boom. Expand on that.
So, again, if I'm only interested in what I want, you don't care about that. But if I help you reach your goals, or to raise the capital, or generate the revenue you're looking to make, or help your family or whatever, help enough people like you do that, it's only naturally going to bring it back my way.
Yeah.
So it's like this reciprocation, this law of reciprocation. And I can't say enough about it. Like, I know to some people it sounds cheesy because a lot of people, they just use this lip service. They say it, but they don't really practice it. But I'm telling you, when you really change your perspective and believe that, it changes everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was probably one of the greatest lessons I've learned from Myron Golden. If you lead with value, there's no reason why you can't be successful. Next question is, if you had to go back to day one, what is one piece of advice that you have given to your younger self when you were starting your entrepreneur journey?
Man, I would say I would have tried to learn the value first a lot sooner, because I was like a lot of entrepreneurs. Like, at first it was about the money, and I would have said, you know what, don't worry about it, it's coming. Right now, I had circumstances that kind of, came along, and I learned some hard lessons that were needed, but I wish I would have learned it sooner, because it's a game changer.
For sure. What is one book or one resource that has, or even connection with somebody that has completely changed the game for you?
Well, the Bible's definitely one. I think that goes without saying, right? But I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
Another book that I love, I mentioned it earlier, and I listen. I'm an audiobook guy too. The Obstacle is the Way. I think that's a book that can continue to help you no matter where you are in your journey as an entrepreneur. So, connections, there's just too many to name. I mean, there's been so many people. There's a lot of people that say, I'm a self-made millionaire. I don't believe that. And I know that rubs some people the wrong way, but I don't think anybody made it on their own.
Yeah.
There's always somebody that's helped them along the way.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot for me, and we'd have to go on for another hour and a half or 2 hours for me to name them all.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you mentioned earlier that you have some things that you've posted on social media, on LinkedIn, that provides value for people for free. Do you have anything that you can share our audience right now? Maybe it's a checklist, or maybe it's like a PDF that they can go to and learn more about you and kind of, get a little taste of what you have to offer?
Yeah, I'll give you an actual link for that, and you can put it in the show notes. But if they want to email me in the meantime, they can email me at anthony@foundmoneypartnerships.com and just put your name in the put Jet in the subject line, and I'll get you taken care of.
Boom. Any parting advice?
Man, I just say, just do your best, and especially right now, it's like we live in a kind of a wonky time. I'd say focus on the things you need to focus on, and turn off the news. Turn off the news for 30 days. See how you feel.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just too easy to get distracted, and just put your head down and focus.
Yeah.
Turn it off.
Yeah. For anybody that wants to maybe connect with you on social media, how can they do that?
You can look me up on LinkedIn, of course, just linkedin.com/Anthony Simone, and then send me an email.
Boom. There you have it. Man, such a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for sharing so much value with our audience today. And that was fire. That was so fire.
Awesome. Honored to be here. Hope everybody got some value.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. And if you want to stick around, we're gonna go live in just a minute again to have another friend from the Family Mastermind come on the show today. Let's go, baby. That's so fire. Have a great day.